Hello, I'm Lt Mat Carlow, 2943 PPCLI Army Cadet Corps in Campbell River, BC. Today we're going to build a spring snare. So in a survival situation, we want to conserve energy as much as possible. Snaring is a good low energy alternative to hunting because we can set the snare in multiple locations if we want to, and walk away, go gather some other food, berries, that sort of thing, come back and we might have something here for us rather than chasing the animal down through the bush. What we're going to make today is a tripline spring snare. This will be good for a variety of small game. What we're trying to do is snare the animal's leg and hold it up above the ground so that it can't get away. As long as it keeps tension on the snare line, the animal won't be able to pull it loose, and it'll be here when we come back looking for it. The first thing we need to do is find a suitable location. What we are looking for is a well-worn game trail through the trees. Once we have found a trail, we're going to follow it until we find a live tree about 2 inches in diameter that can be used as a spring pole. So we found a suitable game trail. What we're looking for is a long, thin, but still living tree that we can use as our spring for the spring snare. One that we can bend over the trail, so it's got to be fairly close. And what we're going to do is cut it off a little ways up and use that as our spring pole. So what we're going to do is bend this tree over. We might have to clear a bit of the branch above us. And we're just going to bend it over and measure where we want it to be. And from there we're going to use the pocket saw again and cut it off at the right length. We're going to clear some of the foliage out of the way here so that we've got a nice clean area. We've got a hammer and a pole on either side for our trip line, and we need to have it nice and clear so it doesn't interfere with the line itself. So what I'm going to do here is clean off one of the branches that I cut off this tree here, and we're going to use this as our pegs for our trip line. We've also got to make a trigger stick, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. Okay, so we're going to cut off about a 8 to 10 inch piece here as one of our pegs. They've got to be fairly long and fairly sturdy. They're going to have the tension from the spring pole on them. So that should be good. We're going to sharpen that up, and that'll get driven into the ground over here. So what I'm going to do is hammer in my first trip line pole close to the base of our spring tree here. By putting it on this side, it'll give us more movement on the trip line as it comes up, because we're going to put our trigger stick over on this side here. This piece is going to become the bottom of our trigger stick. This is the part that's going to get driven into the ground. So what we're going to do is create a 90-degree notch in the top that's going to angle down this way. So to make this notch for our trigger stick, I'm going to use my pocket knife once again. I'm going to put it 90 degrees in a piece of wood, and I'm just going to baton it in here a little bit. A little less than halfway into the stick. Pull it out, and then we're just going to cut up towards that notch that we made, slowly and carefully, because we don't want to go right through it. So now I'm going to sharpen the other end of this stick, and it's going to get driven into the ground here opposite our anchor stick for the trip line. As I said before, opposite of our anchor stick for our trip line, I'm going to drive this one in with the notch facing towards that other stick. And it's got to be fairly deep because, again, that's going to have the tension from our spring pole pulling up on it while the trap is set. So what I'm going to do now is create the other half of our trigger stick, which is going to be a notch opposite to this one to hook into it. And this one can be fairly small. It's only got to be a couple inches long because it's just going to hook into there and hold both the tension from the spring pole as well as the trip line going across. So when we're making these trigger sticks, often it's best to use green wood because it's not going to split when we're trying to baton through it. The drier, older stuff quite often will just split and fall apart on you, and it's not going to hold the tension of the spring pole that we need. So you can see with that knot there, I haven't had to notch it very far. We've got a pretty good shelf there for our trigger, and that's just going to hook in just like that onto our other one, and the spring pull is going to create tension in an upward direction. So what I'm going to do now is create a groove all the way around the top end of our trigger stick here that our trip line and spring rope are going to hook onto or tie around. Just going to roll it around here as I cut into it. And then from there I can just bevel it up to that line. Doesn't have to be overly deep, it's just got to hold the string that we've got here. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to use this orange line here so it's visible for you guys. In an actual scenario, what I would use is something like a braided fishing line that's got a camouflage color to it, something that's brown, green, hard to see. If this is all you had, what you can do is take some dirt and just rub it through the dirt, and it'll darken it up for you so it's not so visible to the wildlife that are going through. So what I'm going to do now is tie off the trip line to the side closest to our spring pole here. That's just going to be tied off solid there so it doesn't come off at all. Nice and tight. And that's going to get strung across to the other side. And we're going to cut it off with just about 6 inches of excess there. This end, we're going to tie off to our trigger stick here. So we're just going to make sure we've got it so that it's not too tight that it's pulling on it, but snug across so that the line's not laying slack. What we're going to do now, grab our spring pole, we're going to bend it down here, and we're going to tie off a line to it as well. It's got a natural knot right there that'll hold it from slipping off, so we'll use that to our advantage. This line is going to get tied on to our trigger stick as well, and that's what's going to put tension on the snare when the animal walks through. Bend that down, get a good length on it. Right about there, again we'll leave a couple inches just for our knots. So what we'll do is tie off our trigger stick here to our spring pole, just using the same groove that we created before. What we're going to do now is a test fit, so we'll try our trigger stick, make sure it's going to hold. And it is. Now the theory being, when the animal walks through and clips our trip line, it's going to release. What we need to do now is create a snare that's going to go down and sit on top of here, so as they trip it, it'll wrap around their leg or whatever other part and lift it up and keep tension on the snare. So to make our snare, I'm going to tie a little loop into the end of our string. I'm going to keep it fairly small and tight here so that it doesn't slip back open on us. It's perfect. Cut off the excess. Not going to leave any garbage behind here. And we'll pass the end through our loop. And that'll form our snare. That'll pull tight and hold whatever walks through our trap. So what we'll do now is we'll position our trip line to get an idea of where we want this snare to be. Be a little tricky to set, that's a good thing, it means they're sensitive. So we're going to want our snare to sit right over our trip line just like this. And that'll be tied off right there. So our line's perfect length. Tie that off, but we're gonna disarm this here first so we don't get hit in the face with it. And we'll just tie this off here. We want to make sure that this one's tight. The rest of the knots aren't a really big deal because if they come loose, we're not gonna lose our dinner, but this one we want to make sure it's not gonna go anywhere. And that's pretty good. It's not going to go anywhere. So now we'll arm our trap. Once again, this is going to be a little sensitive and tricky. Okay, that's perfect. And we will lay our snare line over top. just like so. This works really well on a narrow game trail. This one's a little bit wide, but what we could do is put some shrubbery and branches around it here to kind of funnel them through this spot. And now, when our animal comes walking through, and they hit our trip line, they're snared. So let's give it a try now. We've got it all set up. We're going to pretend we're walking through here as an animal, and it's got my foot. This spring pull now will just keep tension on the line. The animal won't be able to get away, and if they fight even more, it's just going to pull that base peg out and create even more tension on them. So, as we always teach our cadets, we're going to apply no trace camping here. We're going to clean everything up. We don't want to leave any bits of string behind. We're going to leave it as much the way we found it as we can. We'll put all these branches back in the bush. Nothing's blocking the game trail here for the animals. And put it all away.